Welcome to RECO12 Speaker Meeting Podcast. Before we get started, I just want to give you a heads up. There is a little bit of background noise that is referenced later in this presentation by Naiika. Her house is under construction right now, and there was a lot of background noise. So don't let the sound quality deter you from listening to this powerful and amazing message by Naiika. All right, let's get into it. My name is Justin, and I'm an addict. And thanks to my God, the steps, and the fellowship of other addicts, I'm sober one day at a time since June 19th, 2015. And for that, I am beyond grateful. Welcome to the RECO12 Speaker Meeting. We are an organization whose addictions include alcohol, drugs, lust, and sex, food, and gambling, just to name a few. We come together from all places, faiths, and backgrounds to learn the similarities of addiction and to gain tools and hope from others who are walking a similar path. We invite recovering addicts with at least 1 year sobriety and who are actively working their recovery in their respective fellowships to share their experience, strength, and hope on a live Zoom webinar each Friday at noon Central Time for 20 to 25 minutes. Then we, the live audience, get the opportunity to ask questions of that guest speaker for another 20 to 25 minutes. If you are hearing this meeting in a recorded podcast form and would like to participate as a live audience member in the future, please go to www.RECO12.com. That's RECO12.com, like recovery 12-step, RECO12, to learn more and to submit your email address there to receive weekly invitations. RECO12 is a self-supporting service, and we really appreciate your help in keeping us working our Step 12 in this matter. We gratefully accept contributions to help cover the cost of the Zoom platform, podcast platform, web hosting, and administrative costs. To contribute, you can go to RECO12.com/support, or you can click the link to PayPal that will be in the chat of the live meeting and also in the show notes of the podcast. When you contribute, please specify the meeting number. This is meeting number 52. Last week's meeting was with Arlena A., and she had a great talk on living in sobriety and making sober friends, new sober friends. If you missed hearing that very powerful meeting or any other meeting we have done, you can listen to them in podcast form by searching for RECO12 Speaker Meeting Podcast on virtually any podcast platform that you use, or you can go to the RECO12 website and find it under the link podcast. I have a quick favor for you. If you're listening to this on your podcast platform, please hit pause right now and go and rate and review RECO12. It really helps get this message out to more addicts who suffer and who want diverse speakers about their own experience, strength, and hope. One more word about our speakers before we introduce today's speaker. When we line up a speaker for a meeting, we ask them to seek guidance on what and how to present so that they can reflect the light they've been given by their higher power. That light will inspire hope, meaning, worth, and growth in us, the listening audience. Now, let's introduce our guest speaker for today, Naiika, who will be speaking to us on her experience as a multidisciplinary addict. Now, Naiika, as I just said, is a multidisciplinary addict in New York. She will be sharing her experience, strength, and hope of thriving and prospering in multiple fellowships. What's her secret? Well, here's a little hint. It's found on page 53 in the AA Big Book. Take it away, Naiika. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Justin. Privileged to be here. Hello, family. Those of you that I know, those of you I don't know yet, and just my family that I'm connected to through being a part of this 12-step community, this community that I'm so freaking grateful for. It saved my life. It's changed my world. Prior to coming into these rooms, I had no idea how to navigate my life on a day-to-day basis. I just lived in crippling fear. So it's a privilege actually to be asked to speak. And wherever God calls me, I want to be, because I trust that I'm called to be of maximum helpfulness. So I hope something that I share will be useful. That's the intention, to give tons of resources for how I work my program. I guess just to speak a little bit about me, Multidisciplinary Addict was like something that came to me in a meeting. It was an inspired thought, because I enter a lot of rooms and I'm like, how the heck do I qualify myself? Like, what do I say that I am? Like, whatever. And I've been in a lot of rooms because I'm compulsive. That is just, I'm compulsive by nature, and I will use anything, anyone, anything to help me to feel okay with myself. And I've used men, I've used money, I've used status, I've used food, I've snorted something before. I don't even know what it was. So I'm like, CA, I totally hang out in those open meetings. That's like one of my favorite fellowships. Yeah, Debtors Anonymous. That's pretty much my primary, that one, and SLAW, Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous. Change my world. Who was I before coming into these rooms? I was a fearful person. Since growing up, I feel like I was born an addict, honestly. Yeah, I think about that. I'm like, it's a gift to be an addict because most people don't realize how compulsive they are. But like since childhood, I have been compulsive. My parents were my HP, everything that I needed that I was called to receive, I would ask for and request from them. So I feel like it's kind of natural to learn to rely and seek others out for sustenance and resources. However, that part where I'm supposed to grow out of it, I'd be like, I'm a person. I can do it. I have the confidence to do that. That transition did not happen until recovery. Like, no clue how much I was like just sucking the energy and the life out of the spaces that I occupied. Yeah, and as a kid, I do have the experience. I will let people know because I'm quite comfortable with it now. I had the experience of childhood molestation. I was molested by a very close relative in my family. And through the work of this program, I've been able to forgive that person in a daily practice, be able to be a part of my family, to love him, to love others, to be close to others, when for years I would just live in fear of people. I would be scared of people and I would use food to comfort. I would use status. I would use academic excellence to hide the fact that I was scared of someone taking advantage of me. And the big book, which is what I work through, has taught me that I'm not the result of what happened to me as a child. I'm the result of the way that my brain has responded to the things that happened to me as a child. So I don't use it as something to like pity myself over, but it has a lot of power in recovery. My recovery means a lot to a lot of people that have gone through the experience that I have. So anyone who's in incest, had the experience of incest, anyone that's had the experience of childhood trauma, I'm with you. We do recover in these fellowships. And I hope that the tools that I share today can be of use to someone. So let's fast forward, because my main thing for years, I was like, yeah, I would say my first thing that I started like acting out with was food, after that experience. It was just like, yo, how can I feel good? Birthday parties, all that stuff. Give me cake, like give me candy, give me things to like numb myself out and put me to sleep. And then I remember in high school, I got to the point, and I always had fantasy, like as a part of my addiction. In high school, when the hormones started going, I was like, boys, wow, look at them. Look at them. I'd go to the movies and like watch films and fall in love with like the people on screen, those actors. And I'd be like, one day I'm going to have that guy. One day I'm going to have a guy like that. Or, save clips of magazines and stuff. I was totally scared to interact with them in person, but completely comfortable like living in my fantasy world of what a perfect dude would be like. And yeah, that mental obsession, it bothered me even then. It actually, in fact, impacted my schoolwork. I could barely focus. I would like write my first name with someone else's last name and just stare at them in class and not get any work done. So this addiction, my sex and love addiction, that's been with me for a hot minute. And then, yeah, in my early 20s, I got my first boyfriend. And yeah, that was like, I feel like the most potent drug is another human being, honestly. Nothing prior to that validated me like another person telling me, you're amazing, I like you, whatever. Like I lived off of that. The only thing that was the issue was that it didn't last. That experience of being comforted by that didn't last. when I would first meet the guy, I'd be like, "Oh, you like me? Oh, you really see me?" And then after a while, when they would hang out with me for more than like a month or a couple of months, I'd be like, "Why are you still here? I know there's something wrong with me, so there must be something wrong with you." And then I would turn into this like um obsessed, distrustful, bitter, fearful person in relationship. And I did that primarily with two dudes over the course of 10 years. And then I came into fellowship after a breakup. I would say that's what me losing my apartment, me losing jobs, me being broke, me having poor relationships with my family, none of that brought me into recovery. But when my when my lover was like, we're not going to be together anymore, I wanted to like die. I didn't know what I was going to do with myself. But the solution for me was to get money. I wanted to, like, I wasn't thinking about, let me come into Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous. I was like, let me go into Debtors Anonymous. Let me get my money right so that everyone who's ever thought poorly of me will know I'm successful. And F you and what you thought of me, and that's going to make me feel good. And I came into Debtors Anonymous January 2018. That was my first fellowship. I was not trying to work the steps. I was not trying to be known. And for me, what I'm learning in recovery is that the two pillars of recovery for me, really building a relationship with God, building a relationship with God, entity, whatever. If you have a hard time with the word God, I'm going to keep using God because I've learned that people pleasing is a defect. But grow or die, gift of desperation. Those are two acronyms that, you know, a lot of people use if they're uncomfortable with the word God. But for me, the pillars are building a relationship with God and being of service to other people without the expectation of reciprocity, learning to hold space for others without thinking of myself. My first 6 months of DA wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking all about Naiika. Let me take these tools. Let me learn how to be a superstar. I'm an artist. I've been an artist since birth. Guess what? My childhood really helped me because as a kid, I learned to, I heard some fellow say that the first lie they ever told was, I'm fine. So for me, everything's fine. Everything's good. My life is amazing. I'm going to excel. That makes me a perfect performer. You know, I can get in front of a group of people and just everything's glossy. Everything looks good. But inside I was dying. I've struggled with suicidal ideation for as long as I can remember, sense of purposelessness, feelings of like, yeah, just not having a purpose, not having an identity within myself or my relationship with God, not having that. My status was everything to me. I wanted to be a good daughter. I wanted to be a good sister. I wanted to be a good performer. I wanted to be good for everyone. And it was driving me absolutely nuts. So in DA, you know, I could totally addict my way through recovery. And I did for the first 2 years. It was just like, let me take these tools. Let me practice it. I didn't want to sponsor. I didn't want anyone to guide me because I didn't want to have conversations about my business. And God blessed me with with exactly what I wanted to show me that it didn't help. In my first 6 months of DA, I received a career success beyond my wildest dreams. My childhood dreams that I desired, everything that I could have ever wanted was gifted to me. And guess what Naiika did? She responded in total fear and panic. The thing that would make other people, I would think, happy, like, yes, I worked so hard for this, great. I was like, wow, I'm inadequate. I can't keep this up. I can't face this. I can't do this. And I was raised with religion. I'm grateful for, you know, my path to building a relationship with God. I was raised Catholic. You know, I had a relationship with God and I would talk to God, but I could not, like, I was very faith without works. I would do until I was too scared to do. So I remember when that experience happened, I heard God tell me, like, it's okay, like, you can do this. And I said no. Let me call people. Let me eat something. Let me seek out someone else to tell me that I'm an F up, because I know deep down that is the problem. Like, I need someone. My addictions, I find, really affirm how I feel about myself internally. I want to feel like a victim. I want to have self-pity. I want to have self-loathing, because for me as a child growing up, that feeling of feeling really, really, really low, after a certain time, it would propel me upwards. My addiction doesn't like moderation and slow progress. It wants to bring me really freaking down, because it says, yo, this is how you're going to shoot up. This is how you're going to get up again. Be miserable. And then you're going to have the resolve. You're going to be so angry. You're going to get everything you want. Like, you're going to go for it. My addict does that. It says, let's bring you down, girl, so that you can go up. And my highs were really high and my lows were really, really painfully low. Really painfully low. So what I'm learning in recovery now is the gift of moderation, to progress steadily in my recovery. My addiction is progressive. It gets worse, never better, but my recovery also progresses. And I'm learning that day in and day out. So really in DA, I phoned it in. I came back into the rooms. I disappeared for like 6 months, thinking that a man would help me, and that leaving the country would help me, that seeking therapy would help me, that going to church would help me. I tried like all kinds of things, read all kinds of books, read all kinds of relationship books, read all kinds of financial books. I joined a ton of fellowships. I found Debtors Anonymous, like I said. I went into the CODA meetings, but like no one would qualify in the meetings in New York. They'd be like, who has recovery and wants to qualify? No one would ever really be like, they want to do that. So I was kind of like, I'll hang out here and make friends, but I'm not going to do any work. I found Arts Anonymous, which is a cool, really cool fellowship of artists that are in recovery from fear. UA, I did all of it. Except SLAW. I didn't come into SLAW because that one I was like, I don't have sex and love problems. I have a not having sex problem. Okay. I have a I don't need men problem. I don't need that fellowship. I don't want to be in that one. So that one was the one that actually changed my world. Shout out to all the sponsors that when I got into DA, when I came back into DA after having my public, embarrassment, I did get a sponsor. My sponsor was working me through the 12 and 12 in DA. Wasn't doing anything for me, honestly. I would read it, circle the stuff, do the stuff, but nothing. And I kept getting up to step 4 and not getting past step 4. So eventually, as I kept talking about relationship problems in Debtors Anonymous, my sponsor said, go into Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous. 2 meetings into Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, I had my camera off. I changed the spelling of my name. I was like, I don't want anyone to know me. My sponsor, Barb, plucked me out of a meeting, said, yo, you want to work the steps? I was like, yes. And she expressed to me this way. I had never been to a Spiritual Gangsters meeting, which is the community that I'm a part of, Big Book Slaw, Big Book Coda. Never been to that meeting. I just spoke with her and she understood me. I'm a fast addict. Like, it doesn't take me long. Oh, I want donut. Oh, that man's the solution. Let me get him. Oh, money. Where's the money? Oh, spend. It's so fast, I can't afford to have, to spend years like cycling through the steps. What I inherited, hey, anyone who works their program differently, whatever way works for you, that's the solution for you. Thank God for it. Someone expressed to me, like 4 times 1 is 1. 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 4. 3 plus 1 is 4. However you get to that solution, get to that solution. For Naiika, though, I really hold really tightly to the early tenets of AA. They work people through the steps in like 4 hours. So me working the steps in a month with my sponsor, Barb, and my grand sponsor, Nikki, that was what I needed. The steps are my education, and sponsorship is the way that I apply it, and I learn to live out the steps on a day-to-day basis. So talking about being a multidisciplinary addict, I'm in a lot of rooms. And I want to send a special thank you to the newcomer that I spoke to last night, who basically relayed to me everything that I wanted to relay here. They said they don't want to buy another book. I was like, get the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. That is the first fellowship. It focuses on spiritual recovery. It's applicable to all 12-step fellowships. So any book like that you could possibly have in recovery, the AA Big Book, I highly, highly recommend. The other thing that she had mentioned to me was she doesn't want to join another program. Hey, that's cool. I totally get it. Naiika's in 5 fellowships, wasn't working the steps in hardly any of them until I started working it in Debtors Anonymous and SLAW. The steps are the steps. What I inherited from spiritual gangsters was a way to like the steps as a design for living. I don't have a God for my sex and love life only, and then that God, I have to go find a new God for my money problems, and I have to find another God for food, and I have to, no, 12 steps, that's my path. Same God that's relieving me of the bondage of self in my food life, in my love life, money life, same God, all the same steps. So working the steps in any program, I highly recommend Spiritual Gangsters, given that like they blessed my life. The recovery I got in that fellowship really, it I don't know what it did. It blew up my DA recovery. Like they taught me how to be honest. They taught me how to work a program. Like I can cycle through all 12 steps in a day. And I'm going to share with you how I do that briefly before we wrap this up. But same steps. It's just go to God, build a relationship with God, build a tight relationship with God, be of service to others. So when Naiika's having problems with Naiika's identity as like a beautiful Black woman, I go and help another beautiful Black woman. When Naiika's having identity issues with my money, my finances as an artist, I go into Debtors Anonymous and I start working with another artist who's struggling. When Naiika's having identity issues with food, I go and work with another person who's having food issues. It's the same steps, but I need fellowship in different communities. And I do need a sponsor if I'm compulsive beyond human aid in certain areas. I work my programs in the 2 main areas that are likely to kill me. For me, that's romance and finance. Men, woof, potent drug, okay? Money, status, potent drug for this addict. But whatever it is that it is for you, like utilize that, because the substance addictions can kill me literally, but the non-substance addictions can make me want to kill myself. So working a program, working the steps is like the foundation. And then with that, God, what would you have me say to them? Okay, so how I actually work my program. I recite my steps 1 through 3 daily in the first person in the present tense. I start my day with this. When I don't start my day, nothing's perfect. Like page 117 of the big book tells me I'm going to make mistakes. I mentally relapse before I do anything external, and I'm without defense against my first thought. So stop beating myself up, Naiika, for having a thought. Stop beating myself up for wanting the donut. Stop beating myself up for wanting a man to comfort me and help me to navigate my life. But I do admit that I'm powerless over it. Whatever it is for that day, I turn my steps into a prayer and I make it personal so that it's not a template that I'm just reciting empty, like an empty, prayer. For right now, I'll tell you what that would mean for me right now. God, I admit I'm powerless over my desire to give the perfect qualification. My life is completely unmanageable. My thought is unmanageable without you. I'm coming to believe that you, God, a power greater than me, can restore me to sanity. You can restore me to right action. You can restore me to wisdom, right thinking. You can restore me to maximum helpfulness. I make the decision right now to turn my will, my crappy thinking, God, and my life, my actions over to your loving care. And then I'll recite the 3rd step prayer. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self. Relieve me of the bondage of fear. Relieve me of the bondage of worrying about whether or not, the construction going on my house right now can be heard on this podcast, so that I may better live thy will. Take away any and all difficulties, emotional, spiritual, financial, intellectual, circumstantial. That victory over every single one, God, may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do, be, live your will always. And then I ask for God's will. And I hear just now, as I'm asking, God, what's your will? Keep going, my girl. That's what I hear. And then with the fourth step has changed my world. The fourth step, I can't afford resentment. Resentment, wow. Resentment does kill. And I'll tell you, resentment is especially lethal when my outer world actually looks good. When my inner world feels like crap and my outer world feels like crap, I'm actually in alignment. In recovery, I kind of have a hope. It's like, okay, I have a hope and I'm looking for tangible things. I would love to come on a podcast and say, I'm married with 5 kids. I have $1 million home. I have a 3-car garage. Whatever. I eat perfectly. I exercise every day. That is not Naiika. And I don't have all of those cash and prizes. And it's okay. Like, God has gifted. Now my cash and prize is to live a humble existence, is to actually enjoy what I have. So with the fourth step, resentment, I've used that for everything. Fourth step is not something I graduate from. Fourth step is something that I do pretty much every other day, especially if a 10th step doesn't take care of it. 10th step is brushing my teeth. Fourth step is a deep cleaning. Because anything that I think is the problem with me is a lie. Like, I'll tell you, it's because this person said this to me, whatever. But when I navigate my fourth step and I really look at the defects, I realize it's my self-seeking that's killing me right now. It's my fear of impressing, of rejection that's killing me right now. It's my desire to feel better than others, my pridefulness, my greed, my lust. That is what I need to actually navigate with God, because I'm not in control of other people. If other people changing is my solution, I have to have my whole world change consistently to whatever it is that I need to them to be in order for me to feel okay. But the big book tells me I can get well regardless of anyone, anything, any place. So it really comes from a place of me honoring what's going on within me. Fourth step helps me get to that. Fourth step over this past year, social injustice, racial injustice. I fourth stepped, my ex and I breaking up. I fourth step financial insecurity. I fourth step my sponsees sometimes because I'm like, I want to see you feel like this, and it's like, no, Naiika, do that fourth step. And with that, it just helps me to see the truth of life. Fifth step is important. I have to share it with someone. I won't go to my sponsor every other day because, Barb, I love you. You don't want to hear from me all the time like that. And even my sponsor and DA doesn't want to hear from me all the time like that. But I will speak to someone who works programs similarly to me, because airing it out and speaking out my truth helps to set me free. 6 and 7 in the big book is like, a paragraph? So I don't really I take the steps seriously because I could die if I don't. I will go into suicidal ideation really fast if I don't. But me giving up my defects and noticing how bad they are, whatever, is not something I have to spend years looking over. Give it up. It's going to come back. It's like the mail. The mail comes every freaking day. I get angry every day. I get fearful every day. But me, I want to have the mailman come in and have lunch with me and stay the whole day. No, my emotions are there. I take it to my fourth step. I see the truth of it. I give it up to God in 6 and 7. 8 and 9 is the weakest part of my program. I hate saying sorry. I'm sorry. But I've learned there's a lot of freedom in it. And I've learned through sponsoring to apologize. I say something to my sponsee. Hey, I didn't pray before I said it. I'm sorry. 10, daily brushing of the teeth. So I can learn to live the steps on a daily basis. 11, conscious contact. I honestly feel like that's such a gem. That's one of my favorite steps. I feel like the 11th step affirms everything that we've been doing up until that point to let you know that you're ready to carry the message in the 12th step. 11th step is conscious contact, but I've already been praying my 3rd step prayer if I'm working the program. I've already been saying my 7th step prayer. I've already been working that in. So the 11th step is telling me, girl, You did it. Like, come on, you can carry the message. Go ahead. And with the 12th step, that is powerful. How can I learn intimacy? By connecting with someone else one-on-one. Connecting with you, Justin. Connecting with my sponsees. Connecting with my sponsor. Like the way that I treat my sponsor was very indicative of my addiction. Sponsors I had before, I'd be like, oh, I don't need you anymore. I'm not going to reach out to you. What Spiritual Gangsters has taught me, I went back and I said thank you to every sponsor I had before my slaw sponsor and before my latest DA sponsor. Thank you. You were helpful to me. My past is an asset. Even 5 minutes ago is an asset. My Catholic upbringing is an asset. Me being a Black woman is an asset. Me having childhood sexual molestation is an asset. When I use it in my recovery, without carrying the message, I just focus on what's happened to me. But when I carry the message, I see the power that the message has in other people. Oh, so with that, what can I say? The last thing I'll share, because I know we got to wrap it up, is resources. Like Big Book sponsorship, Cameron's workbook. I've taken that into every fellowship that I sponsor in. It could be found bigbookSponsorship.org, I think it is the website. My home community, slawtoronto.org. That's the website where you can find all of our meetings. Spiritual Gangsters, we have a WhatsApp group. Like we live to serve. And I get so much joy from it. Like being a giver is like an amazing privilege. Being a sponsee, that's giving. Noticing how you're giving in every capacity. Like God is everything. Like God is, wow. Like what God has gifted me in recovery, I really just can't even say anything. Anyway, 25 minutes. I'm not going to be able to tell y'all everything, but in the Q&A, any question that you have for me, especially for the socially anorexics like myself who fear one-on-one, whatever, now is your time. Like ask me anything. It is like a privilege for me to be able to be here, be with you, Justin, be here as a part of my Spiritual Gangsters community, as a part of Debtors Anonymous community, Arts Anonymous community, CA, AA, all of the A's. Like it's a privilege to be here. So with that, I just pass and I look forward to hearing from all of you.
Awesome. And Naiika, it's a privilege to hear from you. Awesome stuff. I loved your step 3 prayer and the different relieve me of the bondage of, typically it's the bondage of self and then we move on. But I love how you specified things. That's a game changer for me. I appreciate that. All right. We have several questions that have come in and I'll start going through those one at a time here. The first one is from an anonymous attendee. Anonymous attendee says, thank you. Very, very inspiring. You said that you have 2 important things in your recovery. 1, building a relation with God, and 2, being in service. And it's true for me too, but my God is omnipotent and doesn't need me at all. So my question is, quote, the more I build a relationship with God, the less I see my service being valuable because God doesn't need me to help him to help someone else. So I'm stuck in this. Not sure my question is clear. So what's your feedback on that, Naiika?
I understand you. God doesn't need me. God wants me. Wow. I heard one of our fellows say, like, God is obsessed with me. I love to think that way, like about God. God doesn't need me. Yes, the work is going to get done, regardless of whether I'm doing it or not. But what an amazing privilege it is to do God's work. So much. Wow. So much. Like everyone is different. Everyone's unique. Everyone has their special gifts. Yet we're not terminally unique. Like the work will get done regardless of whether Naiika is doing something or not. But there are things very unique to my experience of the way that my personality has come together and my experiences have come together that has helped to be of service. I believe to God in fellowship. Like, I could just mention a couple of examples and I can mention examples of other fellows too. We have a prison ministry in Spiritual Gangsters. Who could think of that except for a person that God delivered that message to? Naiika wasn't thinking about having a prison ministry. I wasn't thinking about that, But for me, God has gifted me, just like with Bill and Bob. they're doing that work. And their fellowship, I don't know if they conceived of it being a global thing and impacting as many millions of people that it's impacted. But whatever God is calling me to do, I trust that it's purpose. It is helpful to me to be in relationship with God. I don't know if I trust it's helpful to God for God to be in relationship with me, but God's always in relationship with me. Yeah, when I feel far away, I think it's just an illusion. I'm learning in recovery. God is always with me. So, yeah, God doesn't need me, but God wants me. And I believe that that's the case for you as well. I trust that that's the case. That's my belief.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you for sharing that response. That's another eye opener for me. All right. Next question is from a different Justin. This isn't me, Justin. This is a different Justin in our audience. He says, Naiika, thank you for sharing your story. I love your statement that another human being is the most powerful substance. That has been true for me. How do you work your steps, and what does your surrender look like when you find yourself seeking out the validation of another person?
Ooh, that's good. That's really good. It happens. I'll tell you about the last time that it happened. Yeah, my mind goes nuts sometimes. And for me, nuts is the acronym, not using the steps. Like I said, my two primary addictions are men and money. And I got lonely at a time, and I have a friend of 10 plus years. He's a great guy, he's great, attractive, nice family, spiritual, all these things, right? Naiika goes, oh, I just want to call him. I heard God say, you don't just want to call him, you bored. And I was like, yeah, I want to call him. So I did end up calling him. And I do take God into my conversations. And I was just like, God, I feel like I like him. And I heard God tell me, God was like, you're going to think about this for a long time. I talk to God like a friend, like God is my best friend. And I did end up telling that friend, because it would just live in my head, that whole fantasy, bursting it. Like, I think page 559 of the big book talks about bursting fantasy, like living in reality. I'm having these feelings. It's a fantasy and illusion whether or not that other person thinks the way that I think that they think. So God burst that bubble for me by saying, hey, why don't you tell them that you like them? But also tell them that you don't actually know if you like them from a romantic place. And I ended up telling that to my friend. I said, I do feel like I'm attracted to you at times, like you're a beautiful person and I want to support God's will in your life, but I don't feel like I'm called to pour into you like romantically. I feel like I might be like a little lonely right now. And my friend was like, thank you so much for sharing that. On and off over the years, I've had that feeling towards you. And, I don't know. And I was like, I don't know either. But guess what? Naiika's brain stopped thinking about him so daggone much. And when it comes to my, another way that happens to me too is like with career. Fourth stepping, it really helps me. Career, I'm constantly thinking, like every day if I don't do my program, and even with doing my program, I still think like this. You want to be successful. You want to be successful. Be successful today. Get everything today. Get there. Do it. My brain just is like, come on, run 26 miles in one day, even though you haven't run a mile yet. It either wants to do that or it wants to be like, you know what? You can't run a mile. Shut up, go lay down somewhere, don't do anything. But moderation, it's like, oh, my brain wants to be successful. Okay, I hear you, addict. I hear you. Let's do a fourth step on that. What's really there? And I've learned through doing fourth steps, especially on my career blunder or embarrassing history that I have that I now know is an asset in my recovery. I learned, oh, I have a fear of XYZ. I have a fear of letting my family down. I have a fear of letting my community down. And when I have that and I navigate that and I share that with someone, they give me tools as to how I can live in the spiritual principles. So the opposite of fear is faith and courage. The opposite of self-seeking, which is what Naiika is doing, is being helpful to others. And in my career life, the big book also says, if you're feeling shaky, work with another alcoholic. If I'm feeling shaky, I work wherever I'm feeling shaky. So for me, that's translated into In Debtors Anonymous and Under Earners Anonymous. God gave me the inspired thought to create a WhatsApp group specifically for musicians. And now, like, it was just me thinking like this. Now I see like 140 other people that I can pour into and they could pour into me on a day in and day out basis. So I hope that's helpful. I do a fourth step. I do a fifth step. I pretty much, when I do 4, I run through 4 through 7. So I'll do the inventory. I'll talk to my sponsor or someone else who works program like me, and then I give up my defects. In 6 and 7, I say the 7-step prayer.
Very good. I really appreciate that. I've got a question for you. So you shared, and thank you very much for being vulnerable of sharing about childhood molestation, and that you had been able to forgive that person through working your steps. That's a really hard thing for some people to do, for a lot of people to do. How did you go about doing that? How did you go about, and as you said here, turning that experience into an asset in your life and helping and serving others?
Yeah, thank you for that. This is near and dear to my heart because for many years I lived in like self-imposed prison as a result of what I thought that meant for me. And God, what would you like me to share? Yeah, so for me, I will admit, with my childhood experiences, anytime I experienced any kind of sexual pleasure, I thought that that was meaning that I liked and enjoyed my childhood experience. So I had shame with sex, that I couldn't feel comfortable enjoying that activity. I wanted to be separate from it, right? So with that, accepting. Pre-recovery, I did a couple things. I actually spoke to the person. I only keep my inventory. I don't share other people's business, so I won't say who it is in my family and things of that nature. But pre-recovery, I confronted the person. I did like a little bit of 12-step stuff, but I had no structure. I didn't know what I was doing. I spoke with him. I read him a letter of how that stuff impacted me. And I thought he apologized, and I thought that would be it. Like, my whole family knew. I was like, okay, that'll be it. I still was so angry. Like, anytime I would get angry, and especially like I would drink too, and I'd be in relationship, I would call him up and go, I'm so effing mad at you, what you did. And he has his own addiction stuff. He's high the majority of the time, and I pray over him, and I'm building a relationship with him. And in his, like, one of his, drugs will help you to like be honest. That's why we use it. These things work until they stop working, So when I was speaking with him, he's like, yeah, I'm so sorry. And he's like, I'm working on myself. I've been meditating. I'm like, who are you to do good things with your life? You're supposed to be the enemy that I hate forever. But as I get close to people, I learn that things are nuanced. One person's enemy can be one person's like best friend. Even with myself, there's some people who know me as Naiika. Oh, she's so helpful in recovery, XYZ. And then there's some people that know me like, Naiika effed up my life, and she, being in a relationship with her screwed me up. That's why I can't like hang my identity on what other people think, because that if that's true for them, that's true for them. So for me, in recovery, I 4th-stepped it again, 4 through 7. And what happened was, I came to the fact that, hey, it's okay that I enjoy sex. It's okay that even in my childhood, my body responded in ways that seemingly made me think that I enjoyed my experience. That's okay. I don't have to hate my body for that. And as I learned to like love myself and be like, hey, it's okay. You had that experience. Okay. It's okay to have pleasure with sexual experience. It's okay. With that, and then taking it into carrying the message. When I do the 4th step in my 5th column, we have 5-column system, and I'm going to run through it real quick. Column 1, what do I resent or have fear for? Column 2, why am I afraid of it? In my column 2, when I write out all the yucky things in my brain as to why I'm afraid of it or why I resent it, I actually go through my column 2 and I say, is this fact or is this imagination? Is this real or is this judgment? And very little of what I think is actually factual information. The facts I take to a properly appointed authority, like a therapist, like a doctor, like, whatever. And then column 3, what does this affect? Me holding on to fear and resentment affects my whole life. It affects my relationships. It affects my finances. It affects my ambition, the vision of who I see myself as. It affects my sense of security, emotional, spiritual, intellectual. It affects my What's the first one? I forget, but it's on the workbook somewhere. And then column 4, what are the defects? But column 5, what's the spiritual principles? Naiika realized and I speak of myself in the third person sometimes, through doing my work on the sexual abuse, fear, victimhood. Not that I wasn't a victim, but I'm a grown ass woman now. Pardon my cursing, but I curse in the spirit of love. Past the point of the initial experience, if I'm still living as though the experience is happening to me in that moment, I'm living in a sense of victimhood, and I can claim responsibility for that. Distrust, that's me. And selfishness, I'm only thinking about me. I'm not thinking about anybody else. But the spiritual principles to that, victimhood is my sense of victory. How has God claimed the victory? God brought me into recovery, into the 12-step rooms. God gifted me a ton of therapists. God gifted me my sponsor, Barb, and my sponsors in the other fellowships. God gifted me the spiritual gangsters community, and I could speak to other people who've had sexual abuse history. God gifted me the inspired thought to, in my family, I've actually shared with them the 4th-step template that I use. And I've spoken to the younger members of the family as a result of doing this work. Hey, I was touched by this person in childhood. Do not touch each other this way. This is how it impacts you as you grow up. If anyone touches you in the family or outside of the family, come to one of us that you feel safe with. If I'm thinking about myself, I don't have time to be thinking about these little ones. You know, so the work really works. When I did that 4th step, it showed me how I could be of service to my family, to my community at large, fellowship, outside of fellowship. I don't even distinguish anymore. It's all the same thing. So yeah, I hope that that's helpful. When I did that 4th step, God showed me how to use it as a point of power.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. We have a couple more quick questions, and I'll combine them into one here. One is the question, what is social anorexia in recovery? And the second one is, how long have you been working in these programs?
Okay, cool. Social anorexia is fear of people. And you can be a sexual anorexic, physical. Me, the way my social anorexia shows up, I'm good in groups. I was raised social. You know, I am a 1st-generation Haitian American woman, very proud of my culture. And I was raised being around people. But being around people doesn't mean that I have intimacy. So I could have fun, ha ha he he. I could be in a meeting going, yeah, yeah, ha ha he he. But one-on-one, deep fear. There's some people who go into groups and have deep fear as well. But social anorexia is just depriving yourself of human connection. That's what that means for me. Crippling. So a lot of people have it to different degrees, like people have addiction to different degrees. But for me, it was like life or death, because when I lived in anorexia actively, I would really struggle with suicidal ideation. And honestly, I feel like everybody has anorexia, because anorexia is deprivation. Addicts don't live in moderation. We starve ourselves, then we gorge. Have lots of sex, then have no sex. Have lots of food, then have no food. Spend lots of money, then spend no money. Anorexia is part of addiction. Yeah, and I think that would be my definition.
Awesome. And then the last question was, how long have you been working in the programs here?
Okay, so I've been in recovery in the rooms now 3.5 years. To me, it really doesn't mean anything. I don't even and I've been in SLAW for like a year now. Sobriety time is not my objective. Recovery is my objective. So sometimes I meet newcomers who are like a weekend program that are on fire, that have what I want, and I want to be around that energy. So for me, yeah, I've been in the rooms 3.5 years, but I haven't been in the rooms doing any work for 3.5 years. I'd say that I've really been working a program like the last 1.5 years solidly.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Do you have any, let's see, it looks like we've covered all of the questions that have come in. So Naiika, do you have any final words of wisdom to leave us with before we close out the meeting here in just a minute?
Please work the steps. Please. Any way that you can. If this is a path that you find is working for you, it was such a waste of time for me to be in the rooms thinking that the meetings would help me recover, thinking that I could get someone else's recovery off of osmosis, thinking I could get someone's spirituality off of osmosis. I had to do my own work. And for someone who did not inherit a structure to navigate my life, like I said, I really feel deeply privileged to have the steps in my life. I did not learn this way in my childhood. I didn't learn this way in my schooling. It wasn't inherited by my family. It wasn't passed down that way. And I hear a lot of people say, like, working the program is hard. Addiction is harder. Living without a structure is way harder than the work that I'm probably applying probably a quarter of the work that I applied to my addiction. So yeah, if you're in the rooms and you're thinking about, like, should you work a program or not, try it. See what happens. Do the work. And if you need any resources, come hang out at SLAW. Even if you don't even think that's a problem, come see about spiritual gangsters. But whatever you do, whatever path you think is going to be right for you, whatever God is leading you to, or highest power, if I say HP, apply yourself to it and see. It doesn't matter if you have doubts. It doesn't matter if you don't even believe it's not going to work. I didn't believe it was going to work either. But do the work and just see what happens.
Naiika, this was a home run of a meeting. Thank you so much. This was a great RECO12 speaker meeting for all addicts and those wanting to learn more about addiction and the recovery therefrom. If we didn't get to your question, or if you have other questions, please feel free to go to RECO12.com/forum and join in our community and ask those questions and answer others' questions that may come up. I invite the audience to come back next week. If you've not yet gone to RECO12.com and submitted your email address to get on the weekly invitation list, please go do so. And come join us next week. In fact, next week's speaker meeting will be following up on one of Naiika's closing remarks and her words of wisdom. Brock will be our speaker, and his topic will be addiction is hard. So is sobriety. Our higher power makes it doable. It's going to be a really cool one, and Brock has a lot of energy. It's going to be really good. All right, now let's launch off into the rest of our day with the Step 7 prayer that Naiika suggested and will be given.
All right. So would you like to say it with me, Justin?
Yeah, I'd be honored to. Go ahead and lead off.
My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding.
Amen. Naiika, that was awesome. Everybody keep coming back. It works if you work it, so work it. You are worth it.
Standing still a moment, carving out this time, reflecting on the landscape of this life of mine. Peaks too high to conquer, streams too wide to cross, troughs too deep to walk through.